Hi guys. Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is stone flattening and dressing. Now we have got this 3000 grit Suehiro to flatten and dress today. Now as you can see, it's a little bit chipped, looks a little bit rubbish, and that's what happens if we don't flatten and dress the edges. So you can see here, I have flattened and dressed it. It looks quite nice and pretty. It's still got some chips out of it, but those will wear out as you use the stone. So without further ado, let's get to it. So what we're going to be doing today is using our DMT DiaSharp extra coarse stone, and I'm going to put these two aside. They have both been sorted out. And we've got our, as I said, 3000 grit Suehiro, and we're going to be working on these guys today. Now this process can be done to your bicha stones as well, or any other stone that wears down. You do not dress or need to dress diamond plates. That's just not something you're going to need to do, obviously, because they don't warp or bend or wear down. But otherwise, for most stones, you're going to need to do this. Now, starting procedure, we're going to soak this in a little bit of water, just get it a little bit wet, clean it off, and this stone, not going to need it so much, but it's going to get wet anyway, so we're going to give it a bit of a rinse, just so we're not detracting any moisture from the stone, from the other stone once we get going. Now, the basic procedure for this is take the stone out of the water, mark the surface with a pencil. That's going to give us a little grid line that we can then use to show and see where and how the stone is worn. So it's actually drying off pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is just give it a quick mark. You want to go as close to the edges as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. You do not have to go everywhere. You're going to get everywhere in the process. Now, you can also see that this is quite a dirty stone. It's got some kind of deep scratches in it, but not too bad. Your pencil marks shouldn't wear off. They'll wear off by rubbing with your fingers, but they shouldn't wear off by just being in the water. Now, the process we're going to use is we're going to take our diamond stone, place it on top. Please be careful about doing this. You'll feel a little bit of water bubble in there, so it'll float a little bit. And then all we do is we will work this back and forth in a figure 8 motion. Now, what we can see here is we've worn off all of the pencil marks here, in this area, a little bit in here and there. But we haven't hit them here, or on this end, which means this is all a high spot here. This is low, that's low, and that's low, which means it's more than likely been worn on this side, that side, and the corner might just have been chipped off or came from the factory out of flat. Now, when do you do this stone flattening? Well, when you get the stones, you're going to want to dress them. As soon as you've gotten them, they're going to need dressing. And once you have established a sharpening routine, you're going to be dressing your stones every couple times you use your stones. That's going to keep them nice and flat, clean, working well, and keep your sharpening as accurate as possible. So this doesn't usually take very long. For a mildly worn stone, this doesn't take very long. The 1000 grit was quite bad and took me about 30 minutes to do. It shouldn't take you more than 5 or 6 minutes from the factory, and thereafter it's actually a really quick process to just do this. It might take you an extra minute each time you set up. You don't have to do the pencil lines every time. I almost never do them. Now I just keep an eye on the wear marks on the stone, because the stone gets dirty and you get to see how it wears as you use it. Boom. Okay, so that area is still high. a little bit low, a little bit low. So I'm just going to wear this area a little bit. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Okay. Now, I do recommend doing this with a towel underneath. I don't have a towel at the moment because mine is getting washed. A towel isn't necessary, however, but do make sure that you do this on a surface that you don't mind getting some grit on. Now, the grit's not going to do too much. It actually wipes off quite easily, but it does make a bit of a mess. If you let it dry, it just leaves some white marks like you would have seen on the table before we started. Let's see how it's doing. You can tell we've got a little bit of a low spot here still. I do circular motions to get the majority of it flat, and then I switch to my figure 8 to get the last little bit, to make sure that we get the last little bit of it flat. There you go. You can see we're wearing it nice and evenly all the way across. And with a little bit of pressure, we should be just about there. A little bit on the sides here, but I can also see that the majority of the marks that were on the surface of the stone have all been worn out. Any scratches, that kind of thing, have all been worn out of the stone. So that's good, they're all gone. They were down here. The stone is looking very nice and clean. You don't have to use any particular kind of pencil for this. I just use a woodworking pencil tonight because, well, because just what I had on hand. There we go, we're pretty much there. Okay. Now if you soak your stone before, this goes a little bit quicker. What I like to do sometimes is do this in the sink. So with running water on it, just a drip, just the water dripping ever so slightly on it. Doesn't have to be anything major. No major water or anything like that. There we go. Check it quick. We should be just about done. Now this is very little pressure, it's pretty much the weight of this stone doing the work. There we go. We're pretty much there. I don't like removing too much from a stone. If it's about at that flat, we're pretty much good to go. Now, next step, to dry off my pencil, is going to be to dress the corners and the sides of a stone. Now, with these stones, you're not really going to have to do too much to the sides when you get them. Just keep them clean, but what I'm going to show you is how to do that. So what we're going to do, I hope you guys can still see, is we just, this little plastic lip we put up against the bottom here, rock it on, and then just pass it up and down the stone. You'll see that cleans the surface up really nicely and trues it up to being square. Now the reason we do this is because we want a nice square edge between here and here. This does not have to be perpendicular. We do just want this whole side to be flat and this whole side to be flat, and these two, because when we chamfer these edges just now, we want that to go smoothly, and we want the chamfer to be nice and even down the length. Not just for aesthetics, but also because Otherwise, we've got to have a very deep chamfer in the middle to get the edges cleaned up. Now you can use the pencil like before to make sure that you're getting all the way along the edge. I'm not going to need to on this because it's quite a dirty stone. Here we go. That's the whole top edge there, nice and clean. Now I'm going to flip it over, do the same to the other side. Couple passes, a little check. Now you can see the dark spots. Ooh, hopefully you can see the dark spots are where it's still low. I'm putting a fair bit of pressure when doing this and just keeping everything standing nice and square. There we go. Now the goal isn't to get all of these little dings out. If you want to do that on your stones or you get some second-hand stones, you're welcome to do that. The goal today is just to get the side nice and close to being flat. You don't have to get that whole top edge, you just want to get 99% of it. Remember, you don't want to wear away your stone too much after you get it. And 99 is going to be more than enough for our needs. There we go, there's a little bit there. Let me see if I can get that out. There we go, that'll be close enough. So now after doing this, this is a very, very crisp, sharp edge. So we want to just be careful with it. Now the reason these edges have all chipped is because the stone dressing wasn't done when the stone was purchased. Now doing the ends is a little bit more tricky because you've got a lot more mass wiggling about. But it's the same process. Hold it up, clean it. I'm going to do this a little bit longer because I want to get some of those dents out because they will chip further. There we go, getting those out quite nicely. Okay, that side's pretty good. Just remember to be careful with your stones. You don't want to drop them onto this stone or you're going to chip it out. So once we've done this whole process, it will prevent the stones from chipping any further. And for you guys with a brand new stone, it will prevent it chipping at all. Now it doesn't stop it. There's no guarantee that your stone won't chip after doing a dressing, but it does increase the strength because you essentially now just have a stress riser with a square edge like that. Okay, so next step now is to take this and we're going to roll these edges on the stone. I'm going to do this like this just to demonstrate what we're doing. We're essentially taking the stone, sitting flat like that, and then we're going to be passing it over the diamond lapping plate and raising this angle as we work around. So we're just essentially going to be doing that around the edge with a light rubbing motion. So with these long sides, I like to start vertically like this. You guys able to see? Yep. And then I just roll it over. Doesn't need to be a lot of pressure. And I go all the way to being flat. And I can do that once more, I think. So you can do this to put a radius of whatever radius you want on that edge. I like a little bit of a rounded, probably, maybe a 2 mil radius, 2-3 mil, personally, because it's just nice and strong, clean, and crisp. Look how nice that is, so nice. Now it's gotten most of those chips out, not all of them. I'm going to leave it because as the stone wears out and I clean it up in use, those will come out, so I'm not going to worry too much. Next side, got to get that sorted as well. You don't need a lot of pressure. Just a little bit. Sorry guys, keep bumping the camera here. Now what I often like to do is put a bigger radius on one side and a smaller on the other, which means that you can get right up to your plunge line when you're sharpening stones, when you're sharpening knives. For guys doing chisel sharpening and stuff, you want a small radius because you want as much width here as possible to work with. To do these ends is a little bit more tricky, but you can do the same process. I'm just working with some limited space here, so I'm going to do a bit of a turn as I go. Just about have the ends done. Now you can see how much of that it's taken out. It was fairly similar to that when we started. Okay, let's do this one. Now it's fairly important that you go all the way to being flat with the stone. So you want to go all the way until the stone is fully touching down, because that gives you the cleanest radius over this edge. Otherwise you end up with a little bit of a lip, and then you've pretty much got the same problem. So you can start all the way flat and raise it up. Another technique I like to do is, I'm going to do it from the side, is essentially a drag up like that for most of it on these stones, and then I finish with some light passes like that just to get the last little bit, and that also works quite nicely. There we go, and that just rounds that off quite nicely there, and there you go, you've got a pretty much dressed stone. Now all we've got left to do is the corners, and essentially all we're going to do with that is taking this stone, we're just going to run it in a circular motion like that, just a little less exaggerated, by hand, very light pressure, just to round the corner over. You're never going to need the corners, and they are just perfect spots for chipping to start. There we go. You can see giant chip out of that corner. Now that's a little bit special, so what I'm going to do is round that out so that I can't feel a sharp edge anywhere on that chip. The material there is already gone, so me wearing it away anymore isn't hurting anything, as long as I'm not wearing away your surface. So that's feeling quite nice there. I need to do a little bit around this side. And your last corner. Same deal. There we go, nice rounded corner. Now we're going to do the same on the corners here. Now these come with fairly well rounded edges sometimes, sometimes not. Oops, sorry guys, I keep bumping the camera. But all we're going to do is roll the stone as we walk it forward. Now, if this part of the stone holder is hitting your desk, just hang this over the edge, and you can do the same thing. Hang this over the edge of your table, and then work off the back edge of the table, and then you can clear nicely. But this one's clearing quite well. I like to do half one way, bring it back, and then do half, just because it's a little bit unstable otherwise. There we go, that's perfect. So it's a little round just to smooth it over. You just don't want to feel any sharp points. There we go. And one more side. And then that'll be us done. Completely sorted, done, finished. with a brand new dressed stone. Now, if you're using a borrowed stone, you might need to clean it up. But that is just a little bit of either soap and water or just some water and a scrubby brush, soft scrubby brush, just to clean out some of the gunk. I'll go and do that later, and that will get some of this gunk out of here. But otherwise, you have a perfectly lapped happy stone that is ready to be used for some precision sharpening. Thank you guys. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your day, and stay tuned for the next video. Cheers.